Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NFL veteran and Super Bowl champion, Will Blackmon.
Manning from the end zone. He throws, and a deflect away, and it is picked off by Will Blackmon, the former Giant.
Tim Dwight watches it hit, bounces, picks it up at the 10, slips a defender, fumbles the football, it's up for grabs, it's covered in the end zone by Will Blackmon for a Green Bay touchdown!
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
Welcome to yet another episode of Bucher and Blackmon, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends on the United WeCast Network. I'm Rick Bucher. He's NFL vet and Super Bowl champ Will Blackmon. You can catch him on NFL Network. You can find him on Twitter at Will Blackmon. You can read my stuff on Bleacher Report, and you can find me on Twitter at Rick Bucher. And you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. All right, I am so excited. You know, it's funny, Will, we were talking yesterday at the end of the podcast, and I was like, what are we going to talk about? And you said, well, it's the free agent frenzy. We're going to have plenty to talk about. And in the course of preparing for the show, now I'm really excited because there's a whole lot. What I really appreciate about this is being able to take people behind the scenes. It's one thing to talk about the news, which is fine. We can give you insight on kind of how things work and, you know, who's going to do well where or who we think's going to do well where and the moves that scratch our heads. But being able to take us inside the machine, that is what I enjoy, and that is something that you're particularly good at. And this is one of those moments as the free agent,
the machine.
Yes, going inside the machine and seeing the gears move and the little men that are pulling the levers. Yes. So the free agency begins. The official legal tampering, as you said, began on Monday, and the instant that the legal tampering begins, it becomes immediately evident to everybody or anybody who's paying attention that there's been a lot of illegal tampering going on, setting up the legal tampering. So, first of all, that's our first subject of today. There's always something else that you want to get into before we get into whatever I want to get into. So I want to leave the door open for you. Is there something else? Is there something else that you'd like to hit?
Is there something going on? You know what? No, I'm ready for free agent frenzy. I woke up and turned the TV on. I was ready to go.
Yeah, I've been running around because people who may know by the production value of our show today or yesterday, John Libby, our normal producer who handles, he's the man inside the machine when it comes to this. He's out of town, and so I've been running around trying to wear two hats here, which included dealing with another member of the United WeCast Network, Gary Owen, and his podcast. And how well do you know the Bay Area? Do you know the Bay Area well at all?
I mean, I've been up there, but I only done like major city stuff. I never.
Okay. So his wife, when they moved from Cincinnati. She's from Oakland, which I still haven't gotten a straight answer as to how she could do this. But she kind of put the okey doke on him. They come to the Bay Area, and she tells him, "Yeah, we're buying the house. We're buying the house we're building is only, I don't know if she said 20 minutes from Walnut Creek, but it's in the East Bay. It's not 20 minutes from Walnut Creek. I live on the coast. It's 75 miles from my house. It is, once you get across the Bay Bridge, once you get to the East Bay, you're talking about another hour plus of driving. So I had to go out there, and short story long, I had to go out there to handle that. And so I've been in the car all day or dealing with everybody else's podcasts. Now I get to do ours. So with that,
boy.
Yes. But I'm excited. I'm excited because you firsthand know how this works. So I'm really curious. When does the conversation, when you know you're going to be a free agent, when you know you're going to be looking for a new home, when does the conversation between you and your agent, as far as either you telling him what you're looking for or him telling you what might be available out there? When does that conversation begin?
My situation was different because I feel like every year my life was on the line. So I always played for 1-year deals. So I always tried to like stay in the moment. And once probably towards the end of the season, I started looking at it, in that regards. I was never in a situation where, I can hold a bunch of teams hostages and I had a bunch of bidding wars. It was either like, hey, I probably had like 1 or 2 teams.
Right.
So in my case, it wasn't anything major. But yeah, so for me, it was probably towards the end of the season, like last game or right after, because that's when, they try to get their future free agents or whatever it is.
Sure.
And then who they want immediately before they go out into the big free agent world.
Right. And how much of that were you kind of looking at, studying what teams had or where you could fit in? How much homework were you doing and kind of trying to figure out to match up like what it was you were hoping to find versus, or just the places that you thought that, you know what, I feel like these guys might give me a call or I might have a shot in this particular place? You
definitely want to try to and maximize your value, see where you can get the most money. That's number one. In my case, I remember when I was in Jacksonville specifically, it was kind of like, man, like, dude, like we were so settled. We loved Jacksonville. We loved Florida. Our neighborhood was awesome. Our son was in a great school. And we were just so comfortable. So it was like, man, do I really go out there and, go out in free agency and just draw this thing out as long as possible? Or should I just come to an agreement where it's somewhat fair on both sides and then like we're happy?
Yeah. And
we're settled where we live, So that was kind of what was going on in that case with Jacksonville.
And are you able to have conversations with the team or the GM or people there to kind of get a feel either for what they're thinking or to express that? How do you play that game?
You kind of don't. I mean, it's funny because it played both ways. One situation, I did re-sign with the Jaguars because I wanted to stay there. On the second situation where it became a free agency, there were mumbles at the combine that I wasn't probably going to make it through training camp.
At the combine?
Oh, yeah.
You were hearing that at the combine?
I heard.
Or your agent was?
I heard someone said at the combine that there was a chance I might not make it through free agency. I mean, through the training camp, excuse me. And so I heard that. And so I immediately reached out to the GM, Caldwell, and I was like, yo, if this is true, do it now.
Interesting.
Release me now so I can go out there and go somewhere else and don't draw me out to training camp.
And did they?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was true. So it was true.
Yeah, it was true.
And you were
acting
on it. True. Now, but you weren't at the combine.
I was not at the combine.
Somebody called you or your agent found out, or how did you?
Yeah, I had representatives at the combine.
Okay. So the agents are there kind of keeping an ear to the ground as well.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Now, did you have any, I assume, then deals are made at the combine? Like the deals that we're hearing announced now.
Yeah, those are some detailed numbers. I mean, come on.
No, it's the same thing in the NBA. Like that July 1st, midnight strikes, and then suddenly you have these guys signing these 5-year, $79 million deals as if they negotiated them in the 30 seconds that happened. I mean, it's blatant tampering. It's blatant violating the rules. And here's the thing. This is where I mean, the league wouldn't function without it. Just imagine if the clock really did start today in football, how challenging that would be for teams to get their business in order in time for OTAs, or it would just be a mad scramble. The ability to work ahead is almost you have to allow it to happen, right? I mean, that's for you too as a player.
Here's the thing: these teams are working nonstop. This is a 365, 24/7 type of job.
Yes,
it's just like when all of a sudden, a coach gets fired and then they hire a new coach in a week. You think they
right.
took them 7 days to find out they wanted that new coach?
Right.
No, they've been doing this. They've been evaluating all season long.
There's an NBA team that was evaluating they had a guy in mind to be their head coach, they were evaluating for 2.5 years ahead of when they actually hired him.
I believe it.
2.5 years.
I believe it.
Yeah. So you're right. And honestly, if you're doing your job, I've also heard some criticism of some current GMs who aren't working every day, like whether it's out there scouting or it's making calls, that if you're not working ahead, then your colleagues they're not critical of you because you're basically tampering or doing whatever that. As long as you don't do it the Lakers way, where you go on a talk show and give away that you're going after Paul George. That's insulting. That was insulting to the Indiana Pacers. Or LeBron letting the world know that he was having dinner with Anthony Davis when the Pelicans came into town. Like stuff like that that's where the other GMs go, don't rub our face in it. I mean, this is business, but you're being really arrogant thinking you're the Lakers and you can kind of do whatever you want.
Right.
Which is why they're all privately sort of enjoying what's happening to the Lakers right now with the mess they're in. So here's the other thing. When it comes to, you just mentioned you wanted to stay in Jacksonville, and then you found out you weren't going to stay in Jacksonville, so give me the opportunity to look for something else. How much money do you think having to move around the way you did, like how expensive is it, not only financially, but emotionally, to constantly be on that edge of, I might have to change schools with my kid. I might have to go find a new house. Do we rent? Do we buy? Do all the machinations of having a family and trying to make it work, and at the same time bouncing around the country, not knowing when you might have to bounce.
Dude, see, now we have to pick this up eventually, because this is where we need to bring in my wife. Okay.
Yep.
Especially when I was released in 2015 from Jacksonville, I then went and signed with Seattle. So that's probably the furthest you can move from Jacksonville to Seattle. And so I said, hold on, let's not move yet, because I've been down this block before. Mm-hmm. Let me go there and try to make this team. It's crazy because, I mean, I had a really, really good preseason. And, the last game of the preseason training camp, they always rest the starters. I was with the starters the whole time. So they rested me. I played like the first series. Game's over. Next day is, I think it's like a Friday or something like that. Family flies into town with our stuff. Truck comes. We move in, got into a place, really cool place. We're unboxing everything. Everything's great. Next morning, we wake up. My wife, Shauna, she's unboxing the stuff, putting stuff away. We get a call at like 6:30. If I get a call between like 6 and 8, I already know it's something.
In the morning?
In the morning.
Okay.
Sure enough, they were like, hey, man, we come on in, come see John, Snyder, and Pete. I was like, you got to be kidding me, dude. We just moved our whole house.
They call him the Turk, right? When you get the call?
I don't know what they call him, man.
Yeah, the Grim Reaper.
Dude, we moved our whole house from Jacksonville.
When did you call Shauna and say?
Probably that last week.
Okay.
Yeah, that last week when I was like, okay, I feel pretty good about this.
Right. And you had every reason to think.
I had every reason. I was the starting nickel the whole time.
Wow.
I had every reason to, yeah. And
that is brutal.
Yeah, so we probably moved 11 times, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
11 times. At one point, I was playing for the Giants, so it was extremely expensive to live in Jersey. Mm-hmm. And we had our home back in California. We spent countless, endless amounts of money because everywhere I went, my family came with me until the kids started school.
Right.
Where they had to be there all the time. But we moved together, Shauna. And the cool thing about Shauna, here's the one thing I do want to mention, is it sounds crazy, it sounds unreal, and just how can you handle it? But Shauna was so ready to go. If we got released and there was a new opportunity, she was like, all right, where are we going? All right, where are we going?
She was all in.
She didn't even blink.
Yeah.
All right, where are we going?
Wow.
I was like, damn, dude, that's super cool. I mean, she was there for my first release when I got released by the Packers, going to my 4th year, and she was 7 months pregnant with Ryder.
So this is what we're going to do. The next podcast, next week, the Sunday for Monday podcast, we're going to have Shauna on, and we're going to talk about the moves, and we're going to get her to give us the logistics.
Yes.
And because
I can go on and on and on. Yeah. So
yes, but we need boots on the ground. We need someone. We need the director to come in and give us the down low on exactly what happens. And the only reason I do this, it's the same reason I had Richard Jefferson on the other day and just talking about celebrity and recognition in public and all that, is you, Richard, all the guys that I know that are or have been professional athletes, they all love the fact that they got to do what they did. They are grateful, and they realize what a blessing it is that they got to play the game at the levels that they did, and the rewards that come with it. What bothers me a little bit, or I think that there would be a greater understanding, is for fans to understand there are sacrifices made that are very real. And like the idea that you live this just pristine life that doesn't have its challenges is not true. And things that the normal person never has to deal with are things that, as a pro athlete, that kind of come with the territory. And not to feel sorry for anybody, but just to understand that it's not always the proverbial bed of roses. So right. With all that, there were a number of things that happened at the beginning of the frenzy. And I wonder if there's among them, whether it's Terrell Suggs to Arizona, or we expected Nick Foles to Jacksonville, the Honey Badger went to the Chiefs, I believe. Trent Brown is the Raiders' new left tackle. Deshaun Jackson going back to Philadelphia. Frank Gore signing with the Bills. Those are just a handful of them.
Right.
Which of those does really was eye-opening for you? Like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. Or, man, is that a game changer?
I definitely didn't see Terrell Suggs going to Arizona. I mean, you figure he's been there, 15 years in Baltimore?
Yeah.
I for sure thought he was going to retire there.
So how do you read that? What do you think? Because Baltimore, it's not as if they're in rebuild mode, right?
I mean, well, you have a new GM.
Uh-huh.
You're getting rid of all of Ozzy's guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
boy, it's going to be weird. If there's certain guys you just can't picture.
Eric DaCosta is coming in and putting his stamp on.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, he's not right now. They didn't. They're not signing C.J. Mosley right now. They released Eric Weddle. You know, Suggs is going to Arizona. Like, these are all Ozzy's guys.
Good point. That's a really good point. Yeah. You know what? The Eric Weddle move should have been the signal of what was coming. Because that was like the first wave.
I didn't think that, though. Like, you think Baltimore Ravens, you think Suggs.
No. I know. But I mean, just that they were...
right. Yeah, that was a signal like Eric DaCosta's taking over.
Yes, he's taking over, and they're going to move in a distinctly different direction.
Well, same thing, the Flacco move. Even drafting Lamar Jackson, I'm sure that was like, hey, DaCosta was like, hey, Ozzy, like, do me this solid. I want him.
Yeah, no doubt. Frank Gore. Man, oh man.
Rolling.
He's like about 3 years past I thought he'd be done. Like, I thought he was done after Indianapolis. I didn't know how much he had left after the 49ers. This is a man who just keeps going. It's impressive. Now, he signed a 1-year deal.
Right.
You got to think he makes the roster. I mean,
I don't know. I think this is a situation where we'll see. You know, he still got the draft. Like, all these guys too, especially the ones that aren't signing big deals, they still can be like casualties from the draft and the rest of free agency. You know what I mean? So who knows? It's interesting.
I don't know if it was announced. I was hearing Case Keenum to Washington.
Oh yeah, that went down.
So what do you make of that? Particularly with, I believe Jamison Crowder went elsewhere.
Yeah, he went to the Jets.
Yes.
I think he's one of the most underrated slot receivers, you know, especially if he stays healthy, man. Gosh, I mean, that'll be a big deal for him.
I've long been, and exactly that. He's quietly really silent. He's done me well in fantasy football.
Has he really?
Yes.
He just needs to stay. It's funny, man. It's especially with the whole Case Keenum thing. It's kind of like, okay, you let Kurt go. He goes to Minnesota. But Minnesota lets go a Case for Kurt. Everybody's gone. The Redskins have Colt, and Colt gets hurt, and then they trade and get Case. So it's like,
musical chairs.
It's like the same quarterback.
Yes.
All around, yeah.
And what a distinctly different view we have of Case Keenum going to Washington now than we had when he was leaving Minnesota. Right? What a difference a year would make. What can he do in Washington? It really is. He's one of those quarterbacks that strikes me. He's as good as the pieces around him.
I still think that I still think they draft him, but what he allows them to do, he allows them to continue to build elsewhere around the team. Yeah. They went and got there desperately. They needed a safety after losing Dieter Swearinger. They got Landon Collins, and they needed someone who can manage, can do a good job, and who does have playoff experience in Case Keenum. So that was a needed. That was a interesting move. I like Case Keenum. I think he is terrific, and I just love his leadership qualities and on how he's fearless. So I respect that of Case.
It's funny that you get guys who they're solid, and because they're solid, they come through in situations, and then they get maybe inflated. They get overvalued. They get made to be something that they're not. Like what Case was able to do with the Minnesota Vikings and how far they went. And you think that, if the crazy pass doesn't happen with the Saints, then they don't go as far as you originally imagined, right?
Right.
And then we have a completely different look or view of him. And so through no fault of his own, he's undervalued, then he's overvalued, but he's always the same guy. Like it's the outside that keeps measuring him in a different way that probably doesn't have anything to do with him and has more to do with his circumstances. Because Minnesota was the type of team that I thought was perfect for Case to be as good as he could possibly be because they had so much around him, right?
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see. Do you think we see Alex Smith play again?
Dude, I think that was the trigger. Is they are not sure. I just hope that everything is fine with him. I know he had a huge scare with like an infection and stuff like that. So I think they definitely had to like make a move and get a quarterback now because he's probably not going to play this year.
Now, the other thing you said there was a couple of things you said yesterday or in the last podcast that I should have responded to and didn't, and had to do with the Raiders. And the first one was the idea that they were signing him, but maybe not necessarily keeping him. How real? Now, were you just having fun?
I was just having fun. They're keeping him. They are keeping him.
I mean, because you kind of threw out there.
I do think though, one of their first round picks, they're gonna trade one of those and get a bunch of picks. They got 3.
Yeah.
There's a lot of value in the second and the third round.
And the other thing you said was maybe they'll draft a quarterback, or maybe they'll move Derek Carr for another quarterback. Now, I would assume that if they did that, it was more, we're moving Derek Carr out and we're making room for a new young quarterback.
Yeah, I think those speculations, I would throw those out. Once again, I was having fun yesterday. I was on the NFL Network with Donald Penn a few months ago, their O-lineman, and he said it's funny. He said because the relationship between Derek Carr and John Gruden is really, really good. They have like this sibling or father-son type of relationship where they're going to argue, but they love each other. They're really close, really, really good friends, and they get along very, very well. So he said it's funny how that's what's portrayed, is that he doesn't like Derek Carr, which is far, far from the truth. And this is from a starting lineman on the team. Yeah.
I know Donald a little bit. He's a good dude. Okay. Deshaun Jackson going back to Philadelphia. What does that mean? What does that mean?
That dude can still run.
Yeah.
That's what's funny. I mean, it's incredible. It's good though, They need another burner. They need another deep threat. He's easily still one of the best all time in terms of taking the top off the defense. And it's cool. Time was up. He gets to go back to Philly and has another really good quarterback. That's the one thing too, is in that offense, he loved playing with Fitzpatrick because, the offense was rolling with him. Yep. And then I know he expressed his frustrations playing with Jameis Winston, but he even said, when Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing well, he said, you got to roll with the hot hand.
Mm-hmm.
You got to roll. I mean, this dude was throwing for 400 yards. He's getting it to Mike Evans. He's getting it to everybody, getting it to Deshaun Jackson. So he gets to go back to Philly and be with a really great play caller and a really good quarterback in Carson Wentz.
The other guy that we talked a little bit about yesterday, I guess this has a Raiders turn too. The hot rumor is, or possibility, is the Raiders signing Le'Veon Bell as well. Like basically just inheriting the Pittsburgh Steelers dynamic duo. Do you see that as a realistic possibility?
I don't know. It depends on, I think they're going to, right now there's talks of them signing LaMarcus Joyner from the Rams, their free safety.
Yep.
Really, really fast, explosive safety. So I don't know how much he's going to get because clearly the Rams felt like they probably couldn't afford him.
Yeah.
And hence them getting Weddle for less. So yeah, it'd be interesting. That would be pretty crazy if they did that.
And considering the price tag that he's looking for, would that be smart? When you look at the Raiders' current composition, you look at their weaknesses last year. If you loaded up on Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, would that be the way to go?
I mean, you got to get the best talent.
I get that, but if you are spending as much as I would anticipate you'd have to spend on and have spent on Antonio Brown already, and then spend on Le'Veon Bell, to me, their issues are as great or greater on the defensive side of the ball. That's where they need. I don't think to upgrade.
I don't think Mayock would do that. I don't think he'll go out there and get both of them because he knows that you still have to build the team long term.
Right. Without those two, I mean, the Steelers obviously weren't a playoff team this year with Antonio Brown. Is their fate sealed that they're not a playoff team?
Who, Pittsburgh?
Yes. Without
No. Pittsburgh is still a playoff team. The one thing they have going for them for sure is obviously they have their quarterback. That's number one. You have a quarterback. You have to have your quarterback, and they do. But they have a veteran offensive line that is able to give Ben time and to help James Conner run the ball. And that's massive just to have that alone. Now, yeah, if they were weak up front and they had Big Ben, they lose AB, then yeah, I would understand that. But they do have an amazing receiver in Juju. So that's the thing too. So no, I still think they are a playoff team, and we will see because apparently the two headaches were Le'Veon Bell and AB, not Big Ben. So we'll see.
We didn't talk about it. We mentioned it at the top. Terrell Suggs to Arizona. Do you like that move? We talked about what it means for Baltimore. What about that move for Arizona?
I mean, he could still go. I like it. Him and Chandler Jones. T. Suggs gets to go back home. He's actually originally from Minnesota, but he moved. I think he was in like 8th grade. He moved to Arizona out there and went to college there, ASU. So he gets to go back home, and that's kind of what it is. You know, I think that makes sense if that's not what if he's not going to play for Baltimore to go back home. Kind of like Eric Weddle. You know, Weddle's still trying to get that ring, and I remember I spoke to Eric probably sometime last year, and he's like, "Yeah, man, you know, hopefully things work out here at Baltimore, and you know, if they don't, because he probably heard things, he said he might shut it down." Then obviously went on to have a Pro Bowl season. So after you have a Pro Bowl season, you're probably thinking like, I'm gonna still go at it, because he, once again, same thing with him, but his family. He was like, man, we keep moving around. He said, I don't want to do that anymore to my family. We kind of want to set up shop and build our household. And for him to sign with the Rams and come back home, that was huge. I'm really happy for him.
Have you heard anything about my guy Zach Taylor in the Bengals? You getting any early reports on the field for him?
I have no idea.
You haven't heard anything? I haven't either.
Nothing.
Yeah. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's like the Bengals, they're just, Ravens are making moves, Browns are making moves, Steelers, good or bad, they're making moves. Bengals, they're still in the league. They're still in the AFC North. They are silent, and I'd say they're silent assassins, but I know the Bengals' history, so I'm not expecting that they got some big surprises for us. I don't. No news is good news. I don't necessarily agree with that in this instance. It's right. You haven't heard anything, like good or bad. You haven't. No one said to you, "Hey, saw Zach Taylor at the combine."
No, look, I got my notes right here, and look, man. Cincy, no notes, nothing.
There's nothing there. There's not a single note.
Listen, they're being silent, man. They're not letting anybody know what's going on.
Yeah, it's silent or absent. That's
you know what I do like. Speaking of the AFC, not the North, but the AFC West. I like the signing of Kareem Jackson. He said peace out to the Texans to go to Denver. I think he signed a 3-year deal. I think he played very, very well last year. I think he had like over 80 tackles as a nickel and a couple picks and made some big hits. And he's a real solid every down type of defensive back. I like that call right there.
What do I know I'm hopping around for anybody listening.
But that's what's going on though. There's so many things with free agency.
Yeah. The Landon Collins to the Redskins, 6 years, $84 million. Amazing how they got that done like in just a matter of minutes. When I look at them, how much of a difference can he make with them? Like, what do you take a step back? I know it's still early with this draft and all kinds of things. Will the Washington team matter next year? Is there any way in which they matter between Keenum and Collins and what they're trying to do?
No, I think they matter. You know, they get Darius Geis back, their running back that they drafted from LSU.
That's right. Forgot about him.
Yeah, he was. He had a really good preseason until he got hurt. They get him back, and they got Case, and then they get Paul Richardson back, who also got hurt. They got decimated with injuries last year. That was the biggest thing for them, and they were still a competitive team.
They were.
So that's where I give credit to Jay Gruden to handle that. You know, to still be competitive. They get their safety in Landon Collins, and I think he's I think that was a really, really big move, defensive back wise for them in the wild. And so people say, well, you know, we signed Josh a couple of years ago too. I feel like the acquisition with Josh, at the time Josh was the hottest cornerback on the market. And when Dave Gettleman took away his franchise tag and made him a free agent, I almost feel like our front office
meaning
when I was on the Redskins.
Right.
I feel like at the time, I think they just made it to like prove a point. Like, hey, we just gotta go make a move.
Right.
Because I didn't think we were desperate for a cornerback. Yeah, we could use some more firepower, but I don't think we were desperate to like, man, we need to make a splash and do this right now.
Right.
And I think we just beat everybody to the punch and made a really good offer.
That's what that was.
I think
that was a splash. That was a splash move.
Yeah, because I think we were 25th in 2015. So yeah, we needed to do better, and then we got Josh, and then we were still 25th. And then they go and we have Kendall Fuller, who stepped his game up the next year in 2017, and they signed DJ Swearinger, and they finished 9th in the top 10. And a huge part of it because Kendall played his behind off, and also DJ Swearinger was a big presence back there. But I just feel like to get Landon, especially a sure tackler, they were horrible tackling last year in the defensive backfield. There were some plays you're like, dude, like what is going on? He's a sure tackler, so I really, really like this move. Probably one of the best, could be the best DB signing they had since D-Hall.
Because of the way they play, and you have guys coming back, so you assume they'll still be run heavy. Do they need to add depth to their offensive line in order to make that system work? Because that's where the injuries happen more than any place else. And you and I talked about it at the time, and you said it's kind of a function of the way they play. You have to anticipate that you're going to have some attrition if you're going to play that kind of that big boy grind 'em football. So I wonder whether you look at that and say, well, this was an extreme case, or you say, yeah, if they're going to continue to play that style, then they better make sure the second and third at those positions is capable of stepping in and still being effective.
Man, that's interesting.
Which way you go on that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because you've already invested. I mean, there's without question healthy. They got a pretty talented offensive line.
Right.
But and it's not like they're all old and long in the tooth. Where the injuries, you look at it and say, well, that's just a function of when you have a team that's that old, that's going to happen. I tend to agree with you that it's kind of the way they play, and you have to expect some of that.
Yeah, I mean, they're all extremely talented, They still have, obviously, Trent Williams, who, when healthy, is probably the best left tackle in the game when he's healthy. But that goes for a lot of guys, They just got to take care of their bodies as best they can,
Yeah.
Especially with that style of offense where the pass game is predicated off the run game, lots of play action.
there are franchises in the NBA whose medical staffs or their training staffs are known for extending guys' careers. Literally, they've got a magic about them. The Phoenix Suns had that they own that for a long stretch. Now they're so young, you don't necessarily see that. But there are a handful of teams. San Antonio's another one that you knew that if you went there, like they'd be able to squeeze out a couple more years out of a veteran player. Who in the NFL is recognized for having a program or having a staff that really does an outstanding job? Who's at the top of the heap when it comes to taking care of their guys and advanced training techniques to keep them on the field?
I would just say from an outside perspective, I think New England does a pretty good job taking care of their guys. I always feel like going into championship games or the playoffs, like they are fully loaded at all times. If someone is injured, it's because they did something drastic to themselves. So I think they do a pretty good job. Obviously, for me, like near and dear to my heart, I always hold the Giants high regard because they've done a lot for me. Sure. To save my career. I feel like Minnesota does a pretty good job too. I don't see a lot of decimated injuries for them. But it's hard, man, because you have 53 guys plus to take care of, and are they themselves doing all the preventative things to take care of themselves? Because all you can do is try to rehab them back to health. So the coach is like, man, why is this guy ready? Are you guys doing what you're supposed to do? It's like, yeah, we are. But is this guy showing up for treatment? Is this guy make sure he's eating the right stuff? Is this guy resting the right way? Is he getting sleep? Is he doing the things himself to make sure he gets himself ready? Yeah.
And I would imagine it's really, you don't have enough people to police everybody. It's guys have to have that discipline themselves. Man, what a place to be. You just like you can lead the guys to the training room, you can lead them to the dining table or whatever it is, but you can't necessarily get them to follow protocol if they're not disciplined and aware enough to do that. That is not, with the NBA is different. You know, there's, I mean, obviously you can't control what guys do at home, but they now have where they provide breakfast before, you know, they have private chefs that are there at the training facility. So guys come in and they have meals made to order, and they make sure that everything's healthy. It's a full service. It's a little bit like Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley created it so that nobody ever wants to go home. They'll do your dry cleaning. They have great dining there. They got a gym. They got like everything you could possibly want so that you never leave. NBA franchises and facilities are now like that. They're built so that guys want to spend all their time there. Have at it, because that means that we've got an eye on you, and you're probably doing the things that we'd like you to do, or involved in the things we'd like you to be involved in if you're under our roof. All right, this was good. This was good stuff.
Where is Earl Thomas gonna go?
Where is
I need to know.
And Le'Veon Bell? The Jets thing was early on with Le'Veon.
I'm not even worried about Le'Veon anymore. He'll go somewhere. I just want to know where Earl goes.
Yeah.
Oh
that's
my gosh.
That's personal on your part.
It's personal.
Yes. All right.
I need to know what's going on here. You know who is a sleeper free agent? I think Tevin Coleman from the Falcons, the running back.
Yeah.
That's a sleeper right there. And how about Adam Humphries going to Tennessee from the Bucs getting $36 million? I know Cole Beasley is like watching that like a hawk right now.
Tampa Bay, what are they going to be?
I don't know, because they let everybody go.
Yeah.
Amendola going to the Lions.
Starting over again.
Going to Matt Patricia, another Patriot guy.
Yeah.
I think that was a big deal, especially for him. Last year, the Lions, they were bottom half. I think they were like 20th or 25th in third down conversions. And Danny Amendola is a third down machine and is known for making big catches. So that's a huge thing. You need to be able to move the chains to hold on to the football, and I think that's a big deal.
Well, that does it for this episode of Bucher and Blackmon, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends on the United WeCast Network. As I said, you can follow Will on Twitter at Will Blackmon. You can find me there at Rick Bucher, and you can follow the show at Bucher Friends on both Twitter and Instagram. If you enjoy the show or you don't, drop us a rating. Let us know how we're doing on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. All you have to do is Like, click the stars. If you want to leave a comment, great. But otherwise, just click the stars and you're done. Or, if you want to get something, screenshot the review and tweet it to us at Bucher Friends, and you'll be eligible to win a prize. We just gave away, and I'll announce it in the next, not in the next podcast, probably the podcast after, by the end of the week, I'll announce who won the $50 gift card to Amazon for taking part in our survey. Thank you for all of you who did. We may do another one of those sometime soon. But we do have, for those who are rating the show, we do have swag available for you. In the next podcast, part 2 of my conversation with former Suns GM Ryan McDonough. We'll get into the gambling concerns that the GMs have while the NBA dives into accepting gambling in a partnership with MGM. We will also get into his brother, Terry McDonough, has the number 1 pick with the Arizona Cardinals. Has there been some conversation? Does he know which direction the Cardinals are looking? And his other brother, Sean McDonough, worked Monday Night Football. What were their conversations like when it came to working with John Gruden and stepping off of that Monday Night Football platform? All of that and more in the next podcast. In the meantime, thanks for listening.